Bulginaka, do you know that cybercrime is becoming a growing problem in Fiji?
Cybercrime is defined as a crime in which a computer is the object of the crime, such as hacking and spamming.
Cybercrime is also cyberbullying and using fake profiles to cause panic and spreading false news.
If you're involved in this or know anyone who's committing these crimes, report them immediately.
I'm Polly.
And I'm Peter.
We host the Traffic Jam Show on City FM.
From 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. every weekday.
Do the right thing.
Fiji. In this bulletin, 17 COVID-19 cases in Fiji now. Schools to remain closed until June. And social gatherings worry police.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Edwin Nana.
Fiji now has 17 patients who've tested positive for the deadly coronavirus. The latest case is a 21-year-old man from Vanuatu. This man is a relative and traveling companion of the earlier case from Lambasa. They traveled together from India to Singapore and on to Fiji. Apanisa Wangairandovu has more.
The latest case comes after the latest round of tests conducted where 25 samples were tested.
Since his return to Fiji, this young man has not shown a single symptom of the virus. You will recall our original case definition for virus testing required that patients display symptoms. Upon returning to the country from overseas, this young man was in self-quarantine for 2 full weeks, up until the 5th of April. Free of any symptoms throughout the virus known 2-week incubation period, by all appearances, he was in the clear.
The latest case also sees a new lockdown period and places for Vanuatu.
Contact tracing stemming from this latest case has revealed the need for additional lockdowns on Vanuatu. The Vunirangi settlement between Nambuwalu and Lambasa will be locked down for the next 28 days. The settlement will rise along a stretch of vital highway, which vehicles will still be allowed to traverse under 24/7 police monitoring, as no alternate routes into Lambasa exist. However, no passengers will be allowed to disembark or embark. No one in and no one out.
This has sent the health professional into overdrive and government now extending all quarantine to 28 days. The lockdown of the Soso settlement as well will be extended another 14 days in line with our 28-day quarantine policy. Given the continued risk of transmission on Vanuatu, our ban on inter-island travel by air and sea will remain in effect.
But as we have seen, the time that is needed to ensure it cannot be spread can be far longer than the world first thought. And it's why we are now extending the quarantine period to a full 28 days. Both for anyone who is newly quarantined and to those who currently are waiting out their initial 14-day period. So for example, if you are on day 7 of your quarantine, you will remain in quarantine for 21 more days.
The Prime Minister adding that even though the super lockdown is lifting, the curfew hours remain. In addition, nightclubs, gyms, cinemas and pools stay closed. Public gatherings are still not permitted. Apanisa Wangairandovu, FBC News.
Police have cordoned off Vunirangi settlement in Raketi, Vanuatu, the residence of the country's latest COVID-19 patient. Located along the Raketi-Nambuwalu highway, the community has just over 20 homes. The area was cordoned off by police yesterday, with the community now on lockdown for 28 days. No one will be allowed in or out during this period. Police have also set up a roadblock next to the home of the 21-year-old patient. Non-essential businesses in Suva can open this morning, minus bars, nightclubs, cinemas, swimming pools and gyms. Attorney General Ayaz Sayed Kayum says even as shops reopen, physical distancing must be maintained.
The lockdown was essentially regarding the non-operation of those businesses that weren't essential, and obviously they will now be allowed to operate, except for those areas that the Honourable Prime Minister highlighted. So, for example, swimming pools, nightclubs, cinemas, gyms, where you have, a lot of personal contact and you aren't able to maintain the level of social distancing.
Schools will remain closed until June, with the reopening date subject to change based on the situation at the ground at the time. Schools were scheduled to open next Monday. Education Minister Rosie Akbar says the break has been extended, recognizing that COVID-19 will be a part of our lives for the foreseeable future. Akbar says once schools resume, then internal examinations will be conducted from Year 1 to Year 8.
Literacy and numeracy examinations for Year 5 and 7, and standard examinations for Years 9 and 11, and of course, external examinations for Year 12 and 13. We stress that these are extraordinary times, and parental guidance, supervision, and monitoring of children is paramount.
The trend in the arrests made by police daily is a worry. Police Commissioner Brigadier General Sitiveni Gilio says while fewer people are being arrested for curfew or lockdown breaches, there are more social gathering breaches. Gilio says they are concerned about Vanua Levu, where the arrests made in the last 3 days have increased. He says given that the Suva lockdown has been lifted, they will work to ensure that people continue to adhere to government directives.
We don't want to happen in the greater Suva area. We're not out of the woods. We will be changing our posture in regards to what we are doing to address the issue if we see there's an influx of people that are moving around aimlessly. We're looking at technology that further can help us get that message out.
High Court Judge Justice Vincent Pereira has set aside the orders made by a Nandi magistrate following a review. Under Section 260 of the Criminal Procedure Act, the decision of Magistrate Simori Turanga has been set aside on the grounds that the accused did breach the curfew and the orders were issued by the Health Ministry. Magistrate Turanga had acquitted 3 men who breached curfew, stating the charges were unlawful because the Prime Minister does not have the powers to impose movement restrictions under the Public Health Act 2020. The magistrate's ruling was based on what can be described as a technical error in the wording of the charges, which referred to a directive from the Prime Minister rather than the Health Minister. Justice Pereira found that the magistrate should have allowed prosecutors to amend the charge and that the curfew orders were approved by the Minister for Health and gazetted on 4th April. The initial matter will be called again in the Nandi Magistrates Court on 21st April. Attorney General A.S. Syed Kayum says unions should consider relief efforts for members affected by COVID-19. Thousands are jobless, others have had pay cuts or hours reduced, but no union has announced packages to assist these Fijians. There's been widespread calls for handouts from the government, but many large unions, which are flush with cash, have not opened up their coffers.
None of the unions, unlike in other parts of the world, you have other union organizations that have come out. In many parts of the world, a lot of the unions come out and actually have a fund. They provide assistance to their members in times of strife, when there are problems. Obviously in Fiji that has not happened to date.
National Union of Hospitality and Catering Employees General Secretary Daniel Urai told FBC News that assistance will depend on the financial positions of the various unions. FBC News has also tried to reach out to other union representatives on the matter. 494 houses in southern Lau, Kandavu and the Western Division were destroyed following Tropical Cyclone Harold. National Disaster Management Office Director Vasiti Soko says the data was gathered by teams on the ground conducting detailed assessments. 109 homes were damaged in Lau, 157 in Kandavu and 228 houses in the Western Division. Soko says certain evacuation centers were still active as of yesterday.
In the Western Division, we now have a total number of 4 evacuation centers still open, with 57 evacuees. In the Central Division, we have 15 evacuation centers still open, with 241 evacuees. In the Eastern Division, we have a total number of 57 evacuation centers still open, with 1,273 evacuees.
Coming up, training alone a concern for Flying Fijians winger.
O ira na ngone no de nunu ena be singa ni mataka.
Mersi sunga da kena loma dina kena mikron.
Sakena ngau na mitar lo bina nora baksa ngai ka bala lo mataki na ngone. Dala bina o ya o meliki.
Bulre o ya Samuel Samuli.
Nama ki rau ena be mataka.
Boniti kena bagrombuka.
Ni boy tini kalima na miniti me ono kina tini na kaloko. Ena Radio Fiji One nandomo ibiti.
Indah pindah na mataka dan ramai na singabo.
Welcome back. With all sporting activities on hold during this coronavirus pandemic, most athletes are left with no choice but to train at home. Conducting his own training is tough for young flying Fijian swinger Chiuta Wainingolo, but he knows that there is no other way out. A rugby star in the making, Wainingolo has always been used to training with his teammates, so going through the paces alone is a challenge for the 22-year-old. Wainingolo says he is thankful to be given a training program to follow.
Finding it very difficult, because training alone, there's no teamwork, but it challenged me a lot. We have to do it 100%.
New Zealand's top players are in full support of the 50% pay cut due to coronavirus, says the Players Association boss Rob Nichol. The freeze should save New Zealand rugby about 25 million New Zealand dollars, coming on top of a 20% pay cut to all New Zealand rugby staff. Cloudy conditions with a chance of afternoon or evening showers over the Fiji group today. And that's your FBC Morning News. Remember to join us at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. for our major bulletin. Remember, in times of crisis, you need factual news that you can trust. Stop believing fake news about COVID-19 on social media. Fight misinformation by getting only the facts about the coronavirus from verified news sources like FBC's TV, radio and digital media news. www.fbcnews.com.fj, keeping Fijians connected with the truth.
हमारे खूबसूरत देश फिजी में चाइल्ड अब्यूज की घटनाएं आए दिन बढ़ रही हैं।
क्यों बच्चों का मासूम बचपन अब्यूज का शिकार हो जाता है?
अपने बच्चों की सुरक्षा का खास ख्याल रखें।
उनसे बातचीत करें, उनके दोस्तों के बारे में जानें।
आज के बच्चे देश का भविष्य है। मैं दीप्ति
और मैं मोनिश,
आपके हमसफर। शामिल हो जाए हमारे साथ मंडे टू फ्राइडे
5:45 AM से 10 AM तक
रेडियो फिजी 2 देश की धड़कन पर।